This meeting will come to order. First order of business I have here is an application by Jack Shear, property owner, Jack Shear, 29 Jones Avenue, Chatham, New York, and public hearing. Is the representative for Jack here? I thought so. Do you have anything you want to start with?
I do not.
Okay. So then I'll open it up if anybody from the public wants to make comment.
Sure. What's going to happen to that back space? Is it going to be left woods, or is it going to be an apartment building, or what's going to happen?
It's going to be woods.
Whoa, let's all drink to that.
From what I understand, the application divides the property into different sections. What's going to happen with it, there has been no application for anything to change on that property. If this goes through, it would mean to be able to do something there. If it's not within the preference of what's acceptable, they would have to come to the board to do it. But for some reason, they just want to make it two separate properties, and that's theirs if they want.
So is it going to maintain just the beauty of the land?
Part of me, from what I understand, and I may be wrong on this one, this is my understanding, is part of the reason they want to do the separation is it makes it easier to keep that land the way it is.
Question, is the parking lot behind the building going to be torn up? Or is it going to...
It'll be removed and...
Right, so that's a big hangout for kids.
And left wild, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have an emotional moment, thank you so much.
I can't move.
I'm from Texas, baby, you know me.
So, any other...
Aaron, will an access road be put in now, or if...
Excuse me,
Oh, sorry.
I know it's in the human nature to talk to the person, but technically that's what you're supposed to talk to. Right, yes. So the question is there going to be an access road put in?
Put in now, or...
At this point in time, from what I understand, there's no application for an access road, so the answer to that would be no.
Thank you.
And you said the lot that's going to be, the woodsy lot that's going to be separated out, is not buildable currently? Or is not?
There is no application to do any building on there.
Okay, is it large enough and has enough frontage to build?
It is. It is buildable.
Okay.
But there won't.
The sewer lines and water lines don't currently reach it, though.
I haven't bothered to look into any of that because we don't need to do that.
Before they would be able, the information that I've been given is that before any construction stuff would be, they'd have to work on the sewer and water lines.
On what?
On the sewer and water lines.
They don't run all the way to the sewer.
They don't run all the way, there would have to be a problem. And it would also, if you try to put the water lines in, it creates a problem because of so many users at that elevation at the end of the line.
Question.
Yes.
That I have the property that runs up to the tennis court, and since that Borden's Pond changed, my yard has a lot of flooding in it. It's like a flood zone. Would those culverts affect my property, or the tennis court is a little farther back, or would it be your property?
Which culvert are you referring to?
Well, if you go to your area, the very end of Jones Avenue, she's behind there's a culvert and it goes into a creek. But I guess once everything changed with Borden's Pond, I'm on the other side of the tennis court and my land started flooding, so I actually got a tax break. But now, I mean, maybe I should have a pond out there.
You should really talk to the DPW.
Yeah.
It really has nothing to do with the planning board.
Okay, that has nothing to do with where the culvert goes after.
No, this is simply a request to take a single parcel of land and make it into two parcels of land. The only reason the planning board is really reviewing this is to confirm, because one parcel has a building on it, to make sure that the size of the parcel that the building is on, which would be cut from the larger parcel, meets the zoning in terms of setback requirements, parking requirements, things of that nature in relation to the zoning. As for the other parcel, which some of you have talked about as to whether it's large enough to build on or anything else, that is nothing that we're addressing or looking at all. Okay, it's a separate parcel. If the applicant may come in at any time they want, should they want to do something with that parcel within the zoning, which is a residential zone, that's what it's zoned at. And there may be all sorts of other things in relation to how that parcel can be developed, but tonight's meeting is nothing more than taking one large parcel and making it into two, and making sure that the one parcel that has the building on it complies with all zoning requirements.
It may be an oversimplification, but in my mind, basically what we're doing tonight, you ready for this, is putting dots on the map.
The village does not have a subdivision law. So sometimes municipalities adopt subdivision laws that have all kinds of stipulations, regulations when they want to subdivide parcels. But not all municipalities do, and the village does not. So basically they just have to conform with the very basic elements of law. The only thing I could, in addition with, for instance, the new parcel, we both have to comply with the minimum lot areas, which they both do with planning to spare. So, but there isn't anything in the Chatham Village Code that really goes beyond that.
We have a question.
Yes, something that you just said, just for some clarity. Currently, the full lot is zoned commercial?
No, it is not.
None of it is zoned commercial.
None of it is zoned commercial.
None of it is zoned commercial.
It's zoned residential. The applicant received a variance from the zoning board of appeals to allow what was a non-conforming use to continue as a
No, it
non.
wasn't that actually.
Well, okay, you go ahead and
They
say.
actually got a use variance.
Okay.
Which is a fairly unusual thing to get, but they had to come in and demonstrate, basically because the existing building wasn't really feasible for any other, it wasn't economically feasible to change it from sort of the type of thing. They got what's called a use variance to use that for like an office storage space.
But it had previously been a doctor's
In
office?
the doctor's office, but that predated the zoning, that went
Okay.
way back.
Okay.
But I mean, there is a listing in the code of the permitted uses in the residential growth.
So then that brings the following question. If the variance is going, or whatever the correct term is going to apply to the smaller section with the building, what does that mean for the remaining section?
They can't do anything new on that because when they get a use variance, it's not a general permission, it's a very specific permission to do the precise thing that they laid out in the location that they did, which consists of only that building. So they can't use the lot generally for that purpose.
Okay.
They'd have to come into the
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're saying is that the variance was basically for that building only, not for the
and the
whole
use of
property.
that building, it really, and because it has to do with how a particular building is being put to use in a way that it doesn't otherwise come from the zoning law, that's what they're allowed to do. But they can't go use the rest of the parcel for non-conforming things.
And
So
so the
if-
remaining part is residential?
Yeah. So if we didn't make this division,
There are certain other things, this applies to everything on the street. I mean, it's called a table of uses. And this is the same of everything down Jones Avenue.
What is the zoning of that particular parcel, I guess is what.
It is, the
Residential.
zoning is called residential, but we're in the residential district.
So anything
One-family
commercial
home,
would need
two-family
to,
home, certain home occupations, not much else. There's very,
yeah.
some other things can be done with a special use permit, which is generally achievable. Multifamily, accessory boarding house, bed and breakfast. This applies to all of Jones Avenue. Anybody can do this
Okay.
on all of Jones Avenue. These are things that could be done with special use permits, and certain other things. But they're generally, the idea of it is that they are things that are compatible with residential neighborhoods. So it's nothing new for this parcel, it's the entire,
Okay.
it's basically almost the entire village, for that matter.
so in part, as it stands now, if the owners of the property decided they wanted to do a commercial on that property, they would have to come and get a variance for that to be able to do it, because the only variance they've got for that building does not apply for the property. So
And does the board understand, just for clarity, because I can't address people, I want to address the board,
Right, that's what you do.
that there's no plan right now for the remaining section?
We have been told, basically, there is no plan for the remaining section other than to leave it wild like it is. Now,
But they could sell it, right?
they might sell it, 10 years from now, they might change their mind, and in that case, they would be coming back to the board. And we'd be
I mean,
saying,
well, except if
Unless-
somebody wanted to put a single family, if they
Yeah,
wanted to
unless they don't put a house on it.
There are a few things that you're allowed to do by right. And if they could get the water, the sewer and all that taken care of, you could build a house on that parcel. You could build, you know, a two-family house on that parcel. Those are all things that are permitted in the residential zone without further permit. It's the same, it's the same, that this village, that applies to most of the village.
yeah.
There's certain things like that that are pretty low impact things that you can do without coming to the planning board. But it's correct.
Any other comments, questions from the general public? Correct me if I'm wrong, but then we will be open to a motion from the board members to close the
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
public hearing. Second motion made and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all board members.
One thing, when you make a motion, I think you should stipulate that the approval thing, if you go to the county for the subdivision, should note that there's currently no water and sewer service to the parcel.
Okay, we're just closing,
Yes.
but once we close it, then we can refer it. So, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Be it recorded that all were in the affirmative. So now, we have to send it to the county, right?
So the county doesn't review subdivisions.
Well, no, we have to have our own discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
What goes to the county.
Real property has to process.
Well, yeah, if once it's approved and stamped, it goes to the county, but it doesn't go to the county side. Yeah.
So now, the board members have any discussion?
I think we discussed everything already,
You think we just-
last meeting.
I have a couple.
Okay,
I want to thank the applicant for submitting the full-size survey that was sealed and stamped. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that most of the information that we requested was put on there. Two things I noticed that were not, neither of which I think is earth-shattering, but I'd really like to know why they weren't done. One had to do with dimensions for the parking lot, and the survey does not show the parking lot dimensions.
We put the spaces on, which I assume is kind of the same thing.
Okay,
Everything's laid out so you can see how many spaces there are. But you did request that,
Yeah,
which is basically the same thing.
Well, okay, I'll be very honest with you. I went up there today because there was not dimensions on the survey, to take some dimensions so I could get a feeling, because I was a little bit concerned that they didn't provide the dimensions. Maybe there was some reason that I should look, okay?
So you were trespassing.
Yes, I was.
it's on a court record too.
And if the dimensions had been provided, I wouldn't have had to do that.
Francis, you can't go on people's property without their permission.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing was that the village line clearly delineated was not,
I would like to defer to Aaron on that one.
Yet the village line doesn't go through a property, so the entire property is inside the village completely.
I understand what you're saying.
Therefore, there was no question.
We were just asking that the village line be identified on the plan. Now, I understand based on
Yeah.
other surveys I've seen in my own survey for my own property, that the village line is shown, and in those cases, it may be that it divides a piece. But on
It
this
can't
one-
divide a piece of property. It literally, it can't, you have two different properties.
Well,
If
you have two different parcel
Yeah.
IDs.
Yes.
Yes, okay. But we were just asking, we requested that the village line be identified. Okay. It may very well be that west side,
It is.
okay.
If I remember correctly in the discussion last month, it was brought up that we did not need that because it was all within the village.
Well, in the notes that we gave the applicant, it said village line clearly denoted to understand how the parcels fall related to the boundaries. So I guess,
That was when we thought there was question whether it went through there or not, which it does not.
Yeah, and then after we discussed that, we said we didn't need it.
okay, I would just have preferred to have written on there that this is the village boundary line, so it's clear where it was. Okay. The other aspect had to do with the parking. And the parking lot that's drawn on the survey shows the handicap location in a totally different location than where the handicap parking is. Do you plan on restriping or repaving a parking lot?
First, I would like to say I do not think this is an application for a site plan. And second, I don't know and it's not up to me.
Okay, but it is an application in which, in terms of the zoning, we had to determine whether there was an adequate amount of parking.
Which we did determine, but that has nothing to do with the handicap space.
The building code only requires one handicap spot for an office building of this size. So literally, there's 2 handicap spots, and it only is required to have one.
I understand that. I guess
Yeah.
what concerned me a bit was the fact that the survey was supposed to reflect what is there and how things are, but it reflects a handicap spot.
There are no lines, there are very faint lines, if any.
There were 2 very clear.
So what we did was we overlaid the proper layout on there to show you the spaces. If it gets restriped, if it changes, it's not up to me.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that I looked at the survey and I take the survey when I review it for the accuracy of what's shown on the survey.
Which none of that is on the parking lot, so therefore you cannot reflect it on the survey. That shows you the amount of spaces.
But this,
You can't reflect something that's not there.
but it is there. That's the point I'm trying to
There are
make.
very faint, if any, lines that.
It's not at all. I don't want to argue with you. The 2 spaces are very clearly marked. There's signs on the building that identify where those parking spots are. It gave me a little bit of question in terms of the accuracy of what we're being provided, in terms of the fact that the handicap spot is not shown where the handicap spot is. Could there possibly be something else that I might be concerned about? That's all I'm saying, okay? The number of parking spaces was 19 total on the spot. And of the 19, 2 were handicap spots.
Okay.
In relation to the square footage of the building, there seems to be a little bit of question as to what is the square footage. On the assessment map or assessment outline stuff we got, it had 5,367. On the surveyor for the building, he had down 5,526. So there's a little bit, but regardless of that, the zoning says you have to have 2 to 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. When I came up on Friday, Aaron was nice enough to give me a copy of the floor plan, interior floor plan, which made it very clear as to what parts of the building would likely be used in conjunction where people would be sitting or needing space versus what was being used as storage. With that in mind, the aspect of in my opinion, the total number of spaces that are on the lot, being 19, would be a reasonable number, even though we could go as high as 4 times 6 and have 24 spaces required, or the minimum, which is 2 times 6, which is 12. The 19 spaces, I think, based on what is the uses inside the building, should be reasonable for that particular space.
Okay.
Those were my points and questions in terms of the review.
assumption that we're ready for a motion?
To approve or disapprove?
I think your motion, Pete, if you're going to approve it, the subdivision plat that's going to be filed with the real property should have a note that was a parcel B or 2 or whatever the new,
Partial A and partial B, so.
well, the one that doesn't have the building on it.
Yeah.
There should be a note that that parcel is not served by the village water and sewer system. I think that's just something that should be indicated on there.
So what I hear you saying is if we decide to say we would like to approve the subdivision lot 2 is to be recorded as not having any village sewer or water.
Yeah, because that is one of the things that's in the suggested in the New York State subdivision law, that making sure things are, you know, can be, that there's fire and water and sewer and sort of things, but I think it's, just should be noted on there that it, in the event someone were to purchase in the future, there's notice that this does not have water or sewer, so that's all I would say. There should be a note that, what's the parcel number? That's the note.
Lot 2,
Lot
just
two.
Lot 2.
It's lot 2.
Just, there should be a note that says lot 2, note, lot 2 is not served by the village water or sewer systems. That's all.
Do we have a motion?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the Village of Chatham Planning Board approve of the subdivision of 29 Jones Avenue into 2 lots. Lot 1 containing existing building and complies with all of the village zoning requirements. Lot 2 does not have water or sewer service going to that lot.
I'll second it.
The second, do we have any discussion on the motion?
Well, again, condition that there be a note on the that is, surveyor needs to put on the subdivision plat that gets signed and approved by you. When you sign it, you should come back with that note that lot 2 is not served by the village or water sewer systems.
So that motion basically states that when I sign this, it should have on it that it does not have village and sewer. So that is a correction, I believe, to the motion to approve.
Correct the motion.
To approve.
Yeah.
Fine, yes.
Who seconded it, so we don't have to.
I'll second the motion as amended.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, continue on. I believe there's no other old business, so we go on to new business. Application.
Appreciate whatever.
Property owners of Chatham Village Tax Number 66.6-2-3 and Chatham Town Tax Parcel Number 56.1-86. Proposed 3-lot subdivision of approximately 15 acres, all in the town parcel. Request from the land survey to proceed.
It's okay, continue on.
Okay, that was, okay.
As a happy person.
Is that a human or a wolf?
That's a happy person. Proceeding with the town, Chatham as lead agency. So basically what I understand is what we're doing is we're allowing the village to back out of being as a lead agency and having the town be the lead agency without our objection.
Well, what does that mean in terms, does it come back to us?
It's not even effective.
It's part of
The part,
Subdivision, the one that said the subdivision is entirely in the parcel that's in the town, not in the village. I think it's just because it's all under common ownership or something that they thought it should be sent to us as an involved agency. But I think you can just say,
this may be a
One, that yes, you would agree to allowing the town to be the lead agency, and two, presumably you don't really have any comments.
If we were told that the tax property, the property up on Jones Avenue could not be outside the village because it had to be separate parcel, now, wouldn't this be the same thing for this property? Would the one property
This-
within the village? be
This whole parcel, it's like, what, 80-something acres? Part of that parcel is in the village, but the part that they want to subdivide off falls entirely in the town.
Correct.
So that is why the town of Chatham wants to be the lead agency, because the subdivision that they're proposing does not impact the land that sits within the village.
The question I had on this was that I was surprised, two things. Number one, this is a letter from the surveyor requesting that the town act as a lead agency and not
It's
a...
not from the town.
It's from a lawyer.
Oh, well, that should actually come from the town. It should come from the lead agency.
Yeah, it's from the surveyor.
Okay, well, that's
Okay.
not.
So that was the first question I had is, I've been familiar with scenarios where two municipalities are
And this
involved
part right here is what's being
in a
subdivided.
subdivision,
So this
and
is not sitting.
one town asks the other to be lead
No, it's
agency.
great, you're totally right, it's the town,
Oh, is this
Okay.
just
the,
this?
the entity that wants to be lead
So the
agency is the
village
one
is
who has an
over here,
obligation
and
to
this
set.
is the part that's being subdivided.
Okay,
So,
so this is the question invalid to start
it
off
doesn't
with.
really amount to anything, you're right.
Right. I mean,
So the lawyer's request has nothing to do with.
It's not a lawyer's request.
Or whatever,
It's the surveyor's request.
which has
Okay.
nothing to do with it. The request is actually coming from the town.
When they go to the town of Chatham planning board, if they want to be lead agency and they want to do a coordinated review and they consider you an involved agency, they have to send a letter to you saying, we as the town of Chatham planning board request to be lead agency. And then you respond to that. The third party, the applicant, that doesn't have any bearing on it.
Is
So-
this even an application? I don't see an application.
It's not an app.
It's not an application, it's a request to let them be the lead agency for an application.
But the applicant can't make that request.
Right.
So this is moot.
Basically.
It's moot.
If we want to argue it, yes, it would not be moved, but if we don't want to argue it, it's moved.
No, you should never act upon something that's not legally proper.
I have a question.
I have a question too.
Aaron, did you receive a letter from the town of Chatham?
No,
This
the
is
letter
what
I
you
received
received,
was
okay.
from the surveyor, yes.
So if none of this is in the village, why did they even have to ask us if the town?
Just because they sent us a letter.
Pardon?
Because they sent us a letter.
Just because the surveyor sent us the letter.
Yeah.
It is really, so.
Because the people that own the parcel being subdivided in the town of Chatham also have property in the village of Chatham.
Right.
So that's why, because they have property on both sides of the
Line.
boundary. But the property being subdivided is strictly in the town of Chatham.
It's a property.
So, yeah, they have,
It's
right.
not, none of this, because I'm getting back to what we just did. We said that we couldn't have a property that was in the village and outside the village.
Yes.
So they own a piece of property in the village, and adjacent to that, they have a piece of property that's outside the village.
Correct.
And they want to take that outside property and subdivide. So why do we care?
We don't.
I don't think we do.
I don't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so,
I'm thinking it would be proper here for me to accept, the board should accept the motion that we grant the town leadership, and we don't want.
I guess the only issue is we didn't receive the letter from the town,
We
so.
don't make any motion, we just, as a board, write a letter responding to this that says, hi, we don't need to do this.
Okay.
No, you should not be responding to a
Let
letter
me ignore it completely.
from the surveyor.
Actually.
Aaron can contact the town and tell the town, we need a letter from them requesting that they are the lead
well, I don't
agency.
think we need to be an involved agency.
We don't even have to be involved.
We don't have any,
That's what
none of the land is affected, none of the residual parcel or the new parcel, neither of those is in the village. So there is no land within the village that is being changed or subdivided in any way. So I think we actually do not need to be involved in secret in any way. So.
Which is what I was saying, is I accept the motion that we have nothing, that this doesn't involve.
I think they were being extra cautious, but they thought they,
Yeah.
kind of continued in the village. But it's a separate you know, it's a separate tax parcel, it's just not really.
The question to me seems like.
It's just a
we
formality.
ignore this completely, and I do absolutely nothing,
That's one possibility.
kind of be slightly nice and respond to this and
Say
explain.
that we don't have anything to do with it, which is what I was suggesting.
For me, I would basically say, if, I don't know why the person sent this letter. The person, surveyor should well have known that it's a scenario between the municipalities, not a private corporation or business. And that if we want to send a letter to the town saying, we're aware of the fact that there is a request and we will.
That's getting more involved.
Well, then,
Responding to this.
I'll make a motion that we take no action on this application, that's not really an application.
that's a good.
That's better word. Do we have a second?
I'll second
And
that.
we have a second. Do we have any discussion?
Well, I still think a letter should be sent, so that they don't end up, the surveyor doesn't end up writing back to us or sending us
Unless
more
there's some
questions.
legal risk, I agree.
I mean,
Just to finish it, just, you know.
would that come from Aaron?
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
no.
I mean,
So
yeah,
the planning board doesn't need to take any action?
No.
You will,
I can write it on behalf of.
Simple email, just say, we don't need.
Yeah, I was emailing back and forth with the clerk for the planning board there, so I'll just
I
email
think
her.
that would be great, just a simple
Okay.
thing, we don't need to see
Yeah.
this.
Yep,
Any further
None
discussion?
of it's in the village, we're not an involved agency, we have nothing to do with this, just.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Okay, opinion of the board for new applicant for zoning board. None. Approved minutes for February 24, 25, which are attached here. I will remind board members, just to keep things clear, minutes are to reflect what happened at the meeting. If something was changed afterwards, then we have to maybe change that in the minutes of this meeting. What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to,
I was-
okay, are we at that point?
Yeah.
Is that, okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of, what was the date?
February 24th, 25.
February 24th of 2025.
I have just,
Yeah.
Do we have a second? If you have a second, then we can discuss it. You're seconding it?
yeah, I'll second this.
Okay, you have to discuss it. Now we have a second. Now, any discussion?
Just so other board members are aware, I had when the minutes, draft minutes were sent out, I had made a comment to the secretary that in one of the areas as to what was needed, it didn't refer to the fact that it needed the surveyor's seal and signature. In the past, the secretary has then modified it and sent the minutes back out for people to look, the board members to look at, to see if they're in agreement with the change and whatever else. My understanding is that's not the way it's gonna be happening anymore. Okay, so that if you have a change to the minutes from what we receive, that change will have to be made at the next meeting, okay? And that's fine, and I'm fine with that.
so do you need to make that change?
No, what took place tonight, it had, the information was there,
Okay.
so it's mute in terms of making.
So if that actually came up at the meeting, then yes, that would be a change in those minutes. If we waited until this meeting to say, wait, we want to change that, then you have to wait. Because the minutes have to reflect exactly what went on at the
That's
meeting.
right. Yeah, they should reflect what did happen. If the minutes don't reflect what did happen, then they can be corrected and reflect the review. But if you change if you actually make a change, add something, whatever, it would be the new minutes. You don't go back and retroactively change things, but we should have done that.
Yeah, we should have done this, so we're going to.
That doesn't go
What
like
we
Now
do
we
is
know.
you approve them, and then you say, at this meeting, we want to change that action.
No, and that's not what,
So what
It
you're saying
wasn't, he
is,
wasn't trying to change
I wasn't
action,
trying
he
to
was
change it.
trying to add missing information.
it was something that was discussed that didn't get in there. And
Yeah, that's fine. If it's discussed, it just didn't get in there, that's fine.
if it's
Okay,
discussed
'cause
one
that's
day
what-
and you're happy, that's okay.
That's
Well,
what
I think-
happened, it was discussed, but the aspect of the signature and the seal wasn't in the minutes.
If it was discussed
Okay.
and not put in the minutes, you can add it to the minutes later. If it was not discussed, but
You
should have
can't.
been, you can't.
Right.
So just to clarify, the Francis's response to the minutes that were emailed to us for review that should have been, that change should have been added to this, and that's what we should be approving today.
Do you want that change put into the minutes?
I'm not-
Okay.
not
He's
worried
saying,
But is that what should happen?
if he wanted to.
That was information that was missed from the minutes, not a change in action.
And in part, remember, not everything that's said in the discussion is always.
I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I really have no idea, but I did read Francis's email about this was left out of the minutes, can you add it in? And that was, change was not done. That was, so are we
It's fine.
updating the minutes
It's
to
fine.
reflect what
Clear
happened?
how we're handling things in this
Okay,
town.
because I think we're talking about two different things.
So let's think, if it happened at the meeting and it should, then it's perfectly fine to correct the minutes to include it. That's the thing. The minutes should reflect what did in fact happen. For better or worse, what did in fact happen. And obviously, they're not, every word that happened, it doesn't get included in the minutes. But if there's a significant thing that was in fact brought up, discussed, or stated, or that occurred in the minutes, in the meeting, and someone believes that should be included in the minutes, then that's fine to add the minutes, you know, and final minutes that have that correction or adjustment or whatever. So, but it's what actually went on.
Okay, so let me,
So is this the thing you want to add in the
If you
was
think
it?
that it has to be included in part of the discussion, then it can be added because it was part of the discussion
Yes.
last month. If you think, okay, it was part of the discussion, but it really isn't necessary to be in the minutes, then we can go on from here.
but can you add it in the draft copy that the secretary sends out, or do you have to
No,
wait
it
until
would
the
be added
meeting?
here.
The draft minutes are the draft minutes have been written. Those cannot be, those are what they are.
Okay,
If
that's
you
fine.
wanted, if you think something needs to be corrected or amended to reflect something that actually took place at the meeting, you say, well, we talked about this, or we made this point, and I think it's significant, it should be in the minutes. Then in the final version of the minutes, you would add that, and then you would say, these are the final approved minutes. But it had to have occurred at the meeting. If it's,
Yeah.
we should have done this, or we want to, you know, or whatever, you can't add that to the previous minutes because it didn't happen.
Which is,
But the minutes can be corrected to reflect what actually took place.
And we have a recording to refer to.
and if you, as I said, if you think that it happened at the meeting, but it's not necessary to be part of the discussion because not all the discussions, then we're okay.
Yeah,
If you want to be
we
at
don't
the
need to refer
discussion,
data.
we can do that.
Yeah, and that's something that applies to all of us. I mean,
Yeah.
we have the clarity now as to how it's supposed to take place.
And from what I hear, what you're saying is you don't think it has to be added because of the discussion.
I'm not worried
So-
about it.
Well, for example, if you make a motion, you know, and what you say in the motion is all substantive and important, and that didn't get picked up in the minutes or for whatever reason, some of the motion wasn't fully or accurately reflected in the minutes, you should correct that.
Definitely.
That should be, it's like, no, this, you know, the motion was this, so that the minutes have an accurate, you know, memorialization of the motion that was made. And that's the kind of thing that should be corrected to reflect what the actual motion was. You know, dialogue depends how significant it is. You know, dialogue doesn't have to be in minutes. If it's significant and it really affects the outcome or it affects the conditions or things of that kind, you know, then it's significant, maybe. But everything that gets said doesn't have to be put in the minutes by any means.
Yeah. So any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. I see that there is no other business in front of the board, unless any board member has something to bring up. Meeting will be adjourned.